Okay, in section 3.8, we're talking about comparison and order of operations with fractions. So to start with, I want to talk about fraction comparison, first part of the lesson. And what we mean by that is if we're given some number of fractions, we want to be able to either order them by size or maybe tell which one is the largest. So for two fractions, we actually have a three-part process that we can go through in order to make that comparison a little bit easier. So to compare two fractions, first, find the LCD, find the least common denominator among the two fractions, then change those fractions to have the LCD as denominator. Or the way that the book says it is to put the fractions into equivalent fractions with the LCD as the denominator. And then the third part, which is really the comparison part, is compare the numerators. And that allows us to answer sort of questions like, which is larger, 9 over 22 or 10 over 33? And we might have some intuitive sense as to which is larger, just based on what we know about fractions and where they occur on a number line. But we want to be able to definitively tell in every case. And so that is why this three-pronged approach comes in. So first, we want to find the LCD between 22 and 33. And remember, the method for doing that is to first find the prime factorization of these two numbers. Now I chose numbers here that are rather easy because we know that 22 and 33 are both multiples of 11, and in this case it's 2 times 11 and 3 times 11. And since 2, 3, and 11 are all primes, we're essentially done. That is the prime factorization for each. And then to find the LCD, what we do is count up the occurrences for each of the primes and put down the maximum. So 2 occurs once, that's in the factorization of 22, and 3 occurs once in the factorization of 33. 11 occurs once, but it occurs once in both. So it doesn't matter which one I sort of pick, but the key is that 11 occurs once in the LCD. And then once I have my list of factors down in the LCD, I just multiply across. 2 times 3 times 11, and that is 66. So the LCD that we're working with here is 66. And now step 2, I need to change these fractions into fractions that both have 66 as denominator. So it's helpful to remember that if I want to multiply a fraction by a constant, I can do that so long as I multiply both the numerator and the denominator by the same number. Because in here I'm using, or over here I'm saying, if I have a over b times k over k, that's equal to ak over bk. And that doesn't change my fraction because looking at this value, k over k really is the same thing as multiplying by 1. And when we multiply by 1, we don't change the value of the thing that we multiplied. So there is, in some sense, a way that I could get back to my starting number. So then what we have to figure out is, what do I multiply by? What do I put in as k in order to get from my starting fraction to my desired end fraction? So in this case, I started out with 9 over 22, and I want to get to some number over 66. And this one, if I multiply by 3, if I multiply 22 by 3, I get 66. But I have to multiply the numerator as well. And so my end fraction becomes 9 times 3 over 22 times 3. And then when I do that multiplication, I'll get 27 over 66. For 10 over 33, well, first I look at the 33 and decide what do I need to multiply by in order to get to 66. So 33 times 2 will get me the 66. And then I need to multiply by the same thing on top that I did on bottom. So then that will become 10 times 2 over 33 times 2. And that will get me 20 over 66. And then that brings us to the third part, which is to compare the two fractions, or to compare the numerators of the two fractions. But you can actually go ahead and write down the entire fraction if you want. So 27 over 66 and 20 over 66. Well, that means that 27 over 66 is greater than 20 over 66. Or if you want, I could look back at my original numbers and say, okay, well, 9 over 22 and 10 over 33. Remember that 10 over 33 was the 20 over 66. 9 over 22 is equivalent to 27 over 66. So then if 27 over 66 is greater than 20 over 66, that must also mean, and that means that 9 over 22 is greater than 10 over 33.